Hello viewers, welcome to Coil Diagnostics, Dio here. Today we have a 2005 Ford Escape with a 3.0 liter. The customer complaint on this car is that the check engine light remains on as the engine is running. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to confirm the customer's complaint. So I will start it so we can confirm the customer's complaint. It feels like this vehicle is misfiring. And as you can see, the check engine light remained on, so customer's complaint confirmed. So now I'm gonna connect the scan tool to the car so we can see what kind of trouble codes we have. Based on how it's shaking, it looks like we're gonna have some misfire codes. So I'm gonna connect the scan tool so we can see what we got. Alright, so here are the trouble codes we have in the engine control module. It looks like we have a code for the intake air temperature sensor, throttle position sensor. We do have some O2 sensor codes and some ignition coil B primary / secondary circuit fault codes. So P0352, P0354, and then P0355. So we're gonna focus on these P03 codes first, and then we'll worry about the O2 sensor codes and the intake air temperature sensor codes later. Since we have all these codes, what I'm gonna do is let's look at some live data and see if we have some misfire counters here, so we can see which cylinders are misfiring constantly. So let's go to data display, misfire data. All right, so let's start it and see which ones we'll be counting. And this is a V6, by the way. I don't know if I mentioned that already. The vehicle is really shaking. I don't know if you can tell by the camera shaking. The camera is kind of shaking right now. Apparently, none of these cylinders is misfiring right now. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna turn off the car and then back out of here and erase all the trouble codes. So I'm gonna erase all the codes, memory codes, and see which ones will come back first once I start the car. So we have all bunch of trouble codes. And we also have an EGR circuit fault code. This EGR code, I mean a defective EGR or a leaking EGR. So if we are having an EGR valve that's like stuck open, so we have exhaust gases inside the intake at the wrong time, that can also cause a misfire. But usually it kills the engine though. Like the engine dies when you induce exhaust inside the intake at the wrong time. So let's do this. Let me clear these codes, and see what happens. Alright, so I just cleared the codes. So I'm gonna start the car now. Let's see. Let's go to pending codes. So these two codes came right up. So these two codes right here. Let me back out of here again. The vehicle is shaking. Let's go to memory codes. So right here, so these are the 4 codes that came right up after clearing the codes. So we have this P0155, and then the P0352, and then the P0354. So we're gonna focus on these 2 codes first, and then we'll focus on these ones later. So P0352 and P0354, it looks like this is cylinder number 2 and cylinder 4. So 2 and 4 are misfiring right now. So we're gonna attack this P0354 first. All right, so let's back out of here. I'm gonna turn off the car, leave the key on. Let's back out of here. Let's go to troubleshooter, engine, I mean, I'm sure it's about cylinder number 4, but let's double check. P0354 right here. This DTC is set when the powertrain control module does not receive a valid ignition diagnostic monitor IDM pulse signal from the ignition module integrated in the PCM. Possible causes: damaged coil, coil driver circuit open, coil driver circuit short to ground, coil driver circuit short to voltage, ignition start/run circuit open or short to ground. So this can be caused by a couple things. DTC only sets for a core primary circuit failure. A secondary, I'm reading right here, guys, a secondary ignition coil or spark plug failure does not set DTC P0354. DTC P03 does not set for a core primary circuit malfunction. Okay, whatever. All right, so let's back out of here. Let's go under the hood and do a RPM drop test, okay? So we're gonna see which cylinder is contributing and which one is not. So let's go under the hood. I'm gonna leave the vehicle running. All right, so I'm here under the hood, and as you can see, I don't know if the camera is gonna pick this up, but the engine is really shaking, okay? So let me see if I can give it gas a little bit. All right, so I was told, I'm actually at my uncle's shop right now. I was told that this cylinder here is not firing at all. These two are firing, but this one is not firing. So I'm gonna go a different way. Let me try to disconnect this and see if it's gonna change anything, if the engine RPM is gonna change. Nothing, no change at all. Let me try this one. No change. Let's try this. No change at all. Already. I'm gonna get my amp clamp and clamp it around this wire to see if we have any current flow on this coil. I will break out the amp clamp and bring you guys back up. Alright guys, so I got my lab scope set up and ready to go. The engine is still running, so I'm going to clamp my amp clamp around any of the wires on the coil. So what we need to see is, once I clamp the amp clamp around any of these wires, we should see a current ramp on this screen if the coil is firing. So I'm gonna clamp this around the first coil. So we're gonna look at the screen now, and nothing is happening on the screen. Let me make sure it's not inverted. Maybe the pattern is, but I should see it though. Right there, I'm not seeing anything on the screen. So I'm gonna move down the line to the next coil. Let's clamp it around this one now. So right here, I'm still looking at the screen. As you can see, there's a pattern. I can see a current ramp pattern, but it's upside down. So just wait for it. So now what I need to do, I just have to switch it. I don't know if you saw that, but let's invert it. So right here, do you see this pattern? I only get the pattern when I hook up to the coil right here in the center. But when I hooked it up around this coil, nothing happened. Do you see this right here? And I am on the red wire. So if you look closely here on the coils, we have 3 wires that have the same color. This one, red here, red on this one, and there's another red here. And then this one is this looks like an orange wire, and a green wire, a yellow wire, and then a green one here. So the different wires are our signal wires, okay? I mean the control. But so right here, the wires that are the different color are the control wires. And then the other wires, the ones that are the same color, are the power feed. So we should have 12 volts on the other one. So we have a current ramp there. So now I'm gonna move it down the line to the third coil. So I'm on this coil now, and right now it looks like my current ramp is still upside down. I don't know if you can see it, just watch here. right there. So it kind of moves. So let's switch this up. This just means my amp clamp is upside down, that's all. Okay, so right here we have a current ramp. So we have a current ramp on these two coils, but not on this one. So watch there. I'm gonna disconnect this. Just watch the screen. I'm gonna disconnect the amp clamp and I'm gonna take it to the first coil. We should have the same pattern right over here, and nothing is happening. So we either have a dead coil or no control to this coil, or no power getting to this coil. Okay, it's one of the three. It's either bad coil, no control, or no power. So I'm gonna turn it off. I'm gonna grab a test light. We're gonna make sure we have power here with the key on first. If we don't have power, we're gonna trace it back to the fuse to see what's going on. Maybe there's an opening in the wire. All right, so I'll grab the test light, turn off the car, and then we're gonna do our next test. So we're gonna focus on this coil right here. So now I'm gonna use a test light, and I'm gonna connect the test light to ground. So right here, my test light is connected to ground. With the engine running, we should have power on the red wire. So I'm gonna test the red wire first, and I have my test light connected to ground. If we have power here, the test light should light. And as you can see, our test light is lit. So we have constant power here. So now I'm going to switch my test light to power, so battery positive, because this is the control. There's a transistor inside the computer that turns the ground on and off to fire the coil, okay? So I'm gonna switch my test light to battery positive, and now my test light is connected to battery positive. I'm going to back probe. I'm not stuffing on the pin. I'm just touching right here on the green wire. So as you can see, we don't have any control. Test light should be flickering right now because I have my test light connected to battery positive, and I'm touching the control wire, which is a control ground. Nothing happens. So let's try on the coil next to it. So right over here. Now let's see if this coil is being controlled. I don't know if you can see, but my test light is flickering. Okay, test light connected to battery positive, and as I'm touching on this control wire, right here my test light is flickering. But when I do the same test on this coil here, nothing happens. All right, so we have this coil is not getting the control. So there's an open somewhere here on the wiring. So we have to chase this wire down to find out where the open is. So I'll find where the open is and bring you guys back up. All right guys, so I followed the harness, and it looks like our dark green and violet wire, the control wire for this coil, goes all the way through this harness, and it goes under the intake, and then it goes back up here. Okay, so here is our wire, this wire right here. So I'm gonna use this piercing tool here, all right, and clip it around the wire. I'm going to connect my test light to battery positive because that's a control wire. Okay, so my test light is connected to battery positive. I'm gonna attach it on this piercing tool here, and I'm gonna start the car. So if we have the control here, this test light should flicker, because I'm wondering, there could be an open between that connector and the coil. Okay, so now let's start it and see if our test light is gonna flicker. And as you can see, the vehicle is running. Our test light is definitely connected to battery positive. Actually, let me make sure our test light has got good connection. So right here, when I'm touching battery ground, our test light lights. So we are definitely connected to battery positive. So now let's stop it over here. Nothing happens, guys, okay? So now the next step is gonna be going up to the computer. So I'm gonna disconnect it here, and I'm gonna go to the computer connector. I already identified the connector where the control wire for cylinder number 4 is, for the coil on cylinder number 4. So here is the wire, and if you look closely here, you will see this wire here. It's actually wire pin number 35. So this wire is the same color. I don't know if you see properly. It's the same color as this one. So I'm gonna back probe this here at the computer now, and we should have control coming out of the computer. So I still have my test light connected to battery positive. And let's back probe it. And right there, nothing happens. So we don't have any flickering on the test light. So there's no control coming out of the computer box. So if you look closely here next to this coil, there is this second coil. The control on this coil, the control wire is green, and it has a yellow tracer. Okay, green wire with a yellow tracer. So if we look closely here next to this wire, we have the same control wire next to it, but this one is for the other coil. Okay, this wire right over here. This wire. Okay, this wire here looks the same as this wire. Can you tell the resemblance? This one is the same wire as this. So I'm gonna back probe this wire just to show you that if everything was fine, because this is starting to look like a bad computer, guys. So I have that other wire back probe, so the control for this coil, for the coil in the middle, my test light is still connected to battery positive. So if I touch this, my test light should flicker. And as you can see, my test light is flickering. All right. So we have control on this coil, the middle coil, not this one. All right. So right here, I'm gonna show you what I was doing on the wiring diagram. All right. So here's the wiring diagram, and if you look closely here, wire 35 right here, pin 35, this dark green and violet, it is the control for this ignition coil. All right. So if we follow it, this one right over here, if you follow it, it comes to this coil right here, coil number 4. All right. So there's power here and a control right here coming from the computer, and we don't have any control. This is a ground control. All right. So then the one I was checking next to it, this light green and yellow tracer 36, this wire over here, right here, this is for cylinder number 5, which is the cylinder in the middle. All right. And we had control on this wire. When I back probe this, you saw the test light flicker when I back probe this wire, this pin 36. All right. So we don't have any control coming out of the computer. So we could have two issues. The control, the transistor inside the computer that turns this circuit, or that turns this coil on, could be defective, or maybe we have a ground issue on this computer, which I doubt. So right now our next step is going to be checking powers and grounds at the computer. All right. So let's go back under the hood and check our grounds and power wires. Actually, before we go under the hood, I want to locate our ground wires first. So if you see closely here on this connector, this first connector, pin number 10, this black wire and the white tracer is a ground. So pin number 10 is a ground. And then it looks like we have 2 more ground wires here. No, 3 more, 47, 48, and 49. All right, so we're gonna check 10, 47, 48, and 49. We should have ground on these wires. So I'm gonna connect our test light to battery positive, and we will attach it here at these pins, and our test light should light. So let's go under the hood and check these grounds connections. All right, so here's the connector, and this is pin number 10. So our black wire and the white tracer is that one. So right over here. So I'm back probing this wire right here. Okay, pin number 10. I still have my test light connected to battery positive. Once I touch this test light should light. Right here, as you can see, my test light is lit. So now let's find 47 and 48. I think 47 and 48 will be on the back of this. So right here is 48 and 47. So these two wires right here, these black wires right here. So let's back probe this one first. Right there, test light is lit. So now let's do the same thing on the other wire. I'm on the second wire right now, and right there test light is lit. So all our 3 ground wires are good, okay? And the other thing we might be concerned about is pin fitment, you know, to see if our pins in there in the computer fit very well on the connector. I don't think someone was in here before. I did remove the covers of the connectors, so the pins actually look really good. So I'm starting to lean towards a bad computer. So after checking all the ground wires, so now we're gonna check the power wires. Let's go back to the wiring diagram and find where our power wires are. Alright, so I already checked the wiring diagram. Our power wires are these 2 wires right here. This white wire with a, looks like a pink tracer. So let's back probe this guy. So these 2 wires are our power wires. So now I'm gonna switch my test light to battery negative. So I switch my test light to battery negative, and I'm gonna touch here. If there's power there, the test light should light. Right there, as you can see, the test light is lit. So now let's do the same thing on the other wire. So we should also have power on this wire. Right there, as you can see, our test light is lit. So this computer only has 2 power wires, only 2 power supplies, and 3 ground wires. We checked all the wires. There's good ground, there's good power. This computer is bad, guys. I'm calling the computer. I feel confident the computer is bad. This computer needs to be replaced. And I checked the control wire. The control wire is good. The other thing I could do, actually the other quick test I can do just to check this control wire here on this coil, actually I can, now that it's already disconnected from the computer, I can send power to it. I'll get a jumper wire and send power to it. So I'm going to send power here, and then I will take my test light, connect it on the other end. If my test light light, it means our wire integrity from the coil to the ECM connector is good. I'm gonna get a jumper wire so we can jump this to see what we're gonna have here at the coil. Alright guys, this is my last quick test I'm gonna show you. I have all the connectors of the computer disconnected. You have to do this test with the computer disconnected. So this wire right here, this dark green wire with a violet tracer, I'm actually back probing it right now, and if you follow this wire, it's going to my battery ground, okay? This yellow lab scope lead goes to battery ground, and I'm sending ground straight to this wire. So basically, there's ground going from the computer connector through the harness up here, okay? Up to this coil connector. So now, since there's ground, I'm sending ground here. I'm gonna connect my test light to battery positive, which I already did. Right here, test light connected to battery positive. Now I'm gonna touch my test light right here. So the other end of the test light is gonna go to this control wire. And my test light should light. And as you can see, my test light is lit. So we don't have an open between the coil and the computer connector there. Right there, our test light is lit. So I can do it the other way around. I can send power here. All right, send power here. I can send power on this side of, I can send power on this side just to see, because you can say, what about if it's shorted to ground and you're sending ground to it? So now I'm gonna connect my test light to battery ground. I can guarantee you guys, this wire is not shorted to ground. Actually, if it were, this coil was gonna be cooked. So right here, our test light is lit. It changed the color because we just reversed the polarity. All right, so that's it, guys. I feel confident calling for this control unit. We're gonna get another control module, put it back on, reprogram it, and this car should be back on the road. So the driver for this cylinder right here inside the computer is defective. The transistor that controls this coil is dead. It's not doing its job anymore. It's no longer sending the control to control this coil. That's why this vehicle was misfiring severely. All right, so I'm gonna leave it here. I hope you like this video. I hope you like this quick little test I did. I'm sorry if I went really fast. I'm actually at my uncle's shop right now, so I came to help him out diagnose this vehicle. There are other vehicles out there that I have to look at. So if you like this video, give it a thumbs up. If you don't, give it a thumb down. But if you do, you gotta tell me why, so we can make better videos in the future. If this is your first time here, subscribe to my YouTube channel, K Diagnostics. Ring the bell so you can get notified every time I upload a new video. If you have any comments, questions, criticism, leave them in the comment box. Once again, thanks for watching, guys. See you next time.